What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the ongoing adventures of a brand new series written by Mark Waid. Yes, that Mark Waid. So today, as you've already probably guessed, we're talking about Batman Superman World's Finest number 2. So yes, we are back at it once again. And if you watched my first review of this particular series, then you already know what it is we're going for here. Mark Waid is trying to tell us, he's jabbing us in the ribs so hard with his elbow that they're about to crack, saying, "Hey, I know DC Comics history. I know the history of this stuff. I need you to know that." And that's exactly what we'll get more of here. It's basically going to be him trying to squeeze in as many different characters from the lore that he can possibly fit in. Now, normally, I would be fine with that. But for some reason here, it just comes across a little bit forced. It seems like you're trying to bloat this with as much of your knowledge as you possibly can because you just want everyone to know, I know DC Comics. We get it. We get it. It's fine. You didn't need to do all of this, but he went ahead and did it anyway. So let's go ahead and jump right into the story that Mark Waid is trying to force down our throats. Now, if you remember from the first issue, there were some shadowy figures who basically sent Poison Ivy and Metallo after Batman and Superman. And Metallo ended up stabbing Superman with a syringe full of a mixture of different kinds of red kryptonite, which, if you know about red kryptonite, it, depending on which one you use, it's going to do different things to Superman. That's the whole thing about red kryptonite. It's kind of a grab bag. It's going to affect him in some way. We just never really know exactly how. So he stabbed him with a mixture of it, injected that directly into his body, and that caused Batman to have to call in the Doom Patrol, particularly Niles Calder, because he's a doctor specializing in all kinds of weird shit. So at the end of the last issue, Niles Calder was getting ready to do surgery on Superman with some kryptonite coated tools. So that's where we're picking up right now. And we're in the Calder mansion, of course, and he has, Robot Man here as his assistant on this. So he's asking for the scalpel, and then he says he's making the primary incision, and then he's telling Cliff to be ready to spread the rib cage. So he's asking him, okay, well, do you need any more light? But then as soon as he opens him up, we see that Superman's heart is glowing red. So he's just telling him, well, apparently not. And then it says Superman's heart seems undamaged by the red kryptonite in his veins. That's not the issue. It's his blood. Because like I said, it was injected to him via syringe. Therefore, yes, it was injected directly into the bloodstream, apparently. We see where Batman and Robin are just watching this, and then another shadowy figure comes up behind them as Elastigirl is sneaking up on them, and she's starting to ask, how are they? And of course, Batman probably already knew she was coming, so he's completely unfazed, but Robin is the one who's all of a sudden screams like a girl, and then she tells him, you seem like you're on edge, and he says, lady, I'm in a creepy old mansion full of walking mummies, taxidermied aliens, and giant eyeballs floating in jars. Yeah, you heard me. I've seen the basement. And then he's saying, now Count Frankenstein and a brain in a tin can have Superman on an operating table. Batman might not look worried, but and then all of a sudden, Niles Calder calls out for Larry, Negative Man, to come in immediately. So he's telling him, we were wrong. It doesn't matter what color it is, red, green, or tartan. Cute. The kryptonite is rapidly toxifying Superman's blood. He's got minutes to live. A full transfusion is too slow, and I don't have the equipment to filter blood. That leaves Negative Man. There's a chance, his radiation can alter that of the K particles to something harmless. So Batman's telling him, purging Superman's circulatory system from within. Niles, the Negative Man power lasts 1 minute. There are 60,000 miles of veins and arteries in the body. Can he beat that deadline? So he's like, well, we're going to have to figure it out. Just go ahead and go. Do it. He releases the Negative Man into Superman's body and just lets it do its thing. So we get the close-up of where he's actually flying through his body and all that shit. And then Robin's asking if it's working, but Robot Man says, that depends on how strong Big Blue can be for the next 60 seconds. And then we get this shot of sad Batman as he's saying, come on, Cal, we've been through hell together. You've got this. And then he puts his hand on his shoulder. And then he says, "You don't just do the impossible, you make it look easy." And we keep getting all these shots of them like fighting different villains. Anyway, we see where the negative man flies back into Larry's body, and then they're just kind of staring at Superman's body, waiting for something to happen. And then, of course, he does come to and asking, what was that? So we see Batman smiling, and Rita saying, "Is Batman smiling?" And Robin's just like, "Well, yeah, it happens." She says, "And you thought we were spooky?" We go on to a little bit later where they're all sitting together in the study or whatever, as Niles is saying, that a few weeks ago the Doom Patrol liberated an item of interest from a madman named Zal, who had been studying it himself. And then we get this back and forth between Niles Calder and Batman where they're both trying to one up each other as far as knowing what's going on. And Batman saying it's a sword from the Shang Dynasty around 1600 BC, likely, Niles says, and then Batman finishes it by saying likely the Zhengzhou area. So Robin is asking, why are they talking over each other? And like I just said, Superman tells him, well, it's because, this is what happens when you have two men who hate not being the smartest guy in the room in the same room together. So Niles is saying, are you familiar with the legend of Nesha? And he says, of course. And he says, well, my team was able to separate legend from fact. And that's where he asks the team to basically go ahead and give us the exposition dump on the whole setup for this particular storyline. So Rita begins it by saying that the sword originally belonged to Neja, the son of China's most powerful warlord Li Jing. Despite his military might, Li Jing couldn't keep his son from dying in battle. So distraught over his loss was Li Jing that he ordered Neja's body to be preserved as effectively as possible. He then abandoned his throne to travel the then known world. And I'm just going to stop right there because there are a lot of ways to really preserve a body. There are some incredible ways to preserve a body. But to make it to where the body doesn't decay at all would require at the very least a touch of magic. It doesn't matter what method you're using, there's no way you can stop a body from decaying at least a little bit, especially for, as we're about to see, how long it takes for this to happen. There would have been a considerable amount of decay. Robot Man finishes it by saying that he was desperate to find some way to resurrect the guy, and he says he extorted, he tortured, he threatened hundreds of wise men and learned nothing. Guy then emptied his piggy bank, fortunes on top of fortunes, and still came up bupkis. So Rita finishes it by saying eventually Li Jing was reduced to servitude, scrubbing the floors of a reputed magician in the faint hope of currying his favor. For years, years passed, and then eventually it was to the point where he could barely even lift up food to his mouth, but he wouldn't give up on the whole quest and everything. He wanted to see his son brought back to life. Larry says eventually the magician just showed him mercy and rewarded him with knowledge that allowed him to create an elixir of eternal life. Li Jing entered his son's tomb and administered the liquid. And that's where we see where, yeah, it did end up working. His son would live, not only there and then, but pretty much forever. For the first time in a decade, Neja saw his dad's tear-stained face, heard his tragic story of sacrifice, and just got all pissed off, saying, what have you done, you stupid old man? We used to command the world, and now you whimper and cower, obedient to others? We had untold riches, and now we're paupers. So he just cuts off his head, saying, all I ever wanted was respect, but obviously now that's worthless. And then he says, may I never be like you, as he kills him. So it says that he made good on. It took him years and thousands of lives were lost, but Neja used the lessons he'd learned from his father to rebuild with an eye towards ruling the known world. In time, his army was twice the size of the one he'd known, his fortune 5 times that, and it wasn't enough for him. Embracing mysticism, adorned with magical weapons, he set out to conquer, striking down his foes with such cruelty that he became known as the Devil Neja. And that's where Superman's standing up, just like, ugh, magic, really? And this devil emblem is his insignia? If he was that powerful, what stopped him from world conquest? And that's when Niles shows him, like, look, here's the thing. They did end up stopping him because the noble house of Xi assembled a team of magical warriors and deities. Unable to kill him, they just ended up imprisoning him, and he opens the scroll to show us all of the warriors and everything. So Batman's asking how and where. He says, no one knows, but I suspect. Batman finishes it by saying that either we're dealing with an acolyte or, worst case scenario, Niles says, this devil Neja may somehow have been released or broken free. So Superman is just saying either way, someone's using our enemies to come at us, and we may not be the only ones. And Niles just like, well, yeah, of course you're not. So he tells them, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So he goes to this room where apparently he just keeps surveillance on all the different heroes, saying, my remote cameras indicate that your foe, Felix Faust, is tormenting some boy just outside Philadelphia. In Central City, the Flash seems to be in trouble as well, while Wonder Woman and Green Lantern are, but he gets cut off when Batman, of all people, is surprised and says, "Wait, you spy on heroes as a matter of routine?" He's like, "Well, I consider it monitoring allies and threats." And then again, Batman, for whatever reason, is surprised by that and says, "We will discuss this later. For now, we split up. Robin, I need you to meet the House of G and learn firsthand exactly how they defeated Neja." So, of course, Robin is a little bit surprised, saying, "Wait a minute, I don't have some sort of time travel device on me, so how do you expect me to do that?" And then Larry is asking him, "Do you actually have that?" And he's like, "No." So Superman tells him, "Don't worry, I called in a traveling companion for you." And we see that it is Supergirl. And then we see where him and Supergirl have some sort of beef by the way that they greet each other. Superman's asking, "Is there a problem?" But they say, "No, not at all." And then Supergirl says, "Nope, nope, but I can handle this myself, you know." He says, "Not if you need a trained detective. Off you go." And so we can see where she's carrying him. And you can just tell from this image that Robin has his arms crossed as though he's not happy with this. And then Superman and Batman take off together. Batman saying, "Calder, see if your team can find Neja and stay in touch. Superman and I have a child to save." So they take off, like I said. And that's where we come to the Fawcett neighborhood, where, of course, since I just said Fawcett, you know exactly who it is that, Felix Faust is after. He says, "This is too easy. At least make it fun for me." Billy Batson, "I was given no clue what a young boy's connection is to the wizard Shazam. Only that I was cautioned to keep you silent." So he fires another blast as Billy keeps running. And he says, "What's the matter, Billy? Something you want to say?" And so we can see where he's cast a spell to where Billy, his mouth has just been sealed. So he's not able to call onto the power of Shazam and turn into, Captain Marvel, or as they're calling him now, Shazam. But I still call him Captain Marvel. Superman shows up and just manages to, swoop him from, the danger as Batman comes and kicks Felix Faust in the face and calls him an underachiever, powerless without his magical toys. And he tells him to drop the staff. So he turns around and asks Superman if he's okay. And he's like, "Well, I'm getting there." He says, "Certainly recovered enough to beat a supervillain named Felix." So he pulls up like a magical barrier as Superman is trying to blast him with heat vision, but he says, "You underestimate me this time. You're helpless against magic, Superman. I'm shielded from your powers." Pity that doesn't work both ways, as he casts a binding spell on both him and Batman. But Batman's starting to tell Superman, "Fly away. Maybe, the distance will negate the spell." But Superman says, "And leave you here? No, no, no. Think of something else." He says, "You're the one who's an escape artist." That's when Batman tells him, "Can't break the shield, but he can still hear us." Superman picks up on like the cue, and then he starts whistling as Felix starts laughing, saying, "Are you serious? Right now you're trying to whistle. That's the plan?" And he tells him, "I don't even hear anything." But Batman tells him, "Yeah, you're not supposed to. What he's doing is whistling an infrasound that apparently the military uses it, and it's a weapon that's inaudible, but it creates extreme vertigo and paralyzing muscle cramps." And so we see where, yeah, that's exactly what it's doing, as Felix is just completely taken off guard. Superman tells Batman, "Go ahead and go get, Billy, and I'll deal with Faust." And then we go back over to Supergirl and Robin as she's flying with him, telling him, "Nice pants." He says, "Yeah, I'm just trying it out." She says, "We're on a mission." He says, "I'm well aware." So she says, "Okay, then we should keep any conversation professional." He says, "Agreed." For two panels, they're both just silent, and then they just jump right into it. He's saying it was an accident. She says, "You were showing off." He says, "Who knew there'd be a monkey there?" She says, "And you wore your costume." And then they kind of just go back and forth arguing with each other before eventually they just stop talking. And then Robin just tells her, "Just fly." She says, "Hang on, we're breaking the time barrier." So basically they're doing that whole type of thing, kind of like reminds me from the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, where he just flew around the earth so fast that like he was able to turn back time. It's kind of that same type of mechanic where basically she just starts flying until she breaks the time barrier, I guess, and she's able to travel back in time with Robin. And then Robin's even asking, "Are you just winging it? How do you know where we'll end up?" She says, "Everything on Earth leaves a tachyon trail if you know how to look with X-ray vision. By tracking the path of the swords, we can follow it back through the entire history." So that's exactly what ends up happening. He says it's cool. And then they show up in pretty much the time where they're supposed to be. She says it's about give or take a year. He says, "Actually, I'd say we're right on the money. That's them down there. Hope they're up for a chat. You need a translation earpiece?" But she says, "I speak the language." He's like, "Well, yeah. Of course you do." Which, I mean, shouldn't you? I'm pretty sure that Batman probably also knows, like, ancient Mandarin and shit. Like, shouldn't you also know it? But whatever. Anyway, they jump down, or, they come down, and Supergirl's greeting them, saying, "We come to you seeking," but before they can, or she can finish that sentence, they start attacking, saying, "Seize them," and everything. Robin tries to quell them by saying, "We're on your side," but of course, the dude doesn't believe him because he says, "You think you're going to deceive us? Do you think we're stupid? Obviously you side with him because you're carrying his sword," which is a very good point. So of course they're surrounded, And then we come back over to Superman, Batman, and Felix Faust as Superman is saying, "You're going to tell us everything about whoever put you up to this, Faust. But first," and then we see where Batman has Billy saying, you're going to cure Billy of whatever it is you afflicted him with. And then Felix is just kind of stumbling for words as he's saying, the staff. And Superman says, "Yeah, well, yeah, I figured that. What is it, how does it work or whatever? Talk." He says, "It's the most important tool in any magician's arsenal, Superman. It's misdirection." So we see where he uses his magic to basically cast a spell on them, saying, "The staff was just to draw your attention. Thanks to my new master, I have no need for trinkets and baubles. The devil Neja is real, gentlemen, and the army he is building is vast and terrifying, for he imbues great power to those who serve him. All he demands in return is the eternal damnation of his enemies to the fires of hell itself." And that's where we see where, yes, they have all been transported down into hell. And that's where the issue leaves off for right now. So, like I said, this is more of, like I said, Mark Waid just trying to throw in as many different characters that we don't really see used all that often to say, "Hey, I know DC lore." Good for you, Mark, but you're bloating this story into all kinds of different shit. Have it bringing in these mystical warriors and this demon thing or whatever. All of that could have been interesting enough by itself. But when you start just trying to tie in all this different stuff, Felix Faust and Shazam and the Doom Patrol and all this other different shit, it's like, all right, how much more are you gonna throw into this before you actually, get a little bit more into the meat of the story? I don't really know. I guess we'll end up having to see how long this is going to take, because it feels like it's getting more and more bloated, and we're only getting along at half steps. We aren't taking full steps to get from beat to beat. We're taking half steps because we need to stop and let everybody know, "Oh yeah, we have these other characters that we're bringing in." That could just be my perception. I've seen a lot of people saying very good things about this, but I feel like those are the people who, again, are just like Mark Waid and want to be like, "I know DC lore. I understood that reference." Very much the Captain America thing, very that. So I don't know. We'll see where this is going to go. It could be a worse story. I have definitely read worse stories coming from DC Comics. So that is absolutely a possibility, but I don't really know. I'm not going to cast my judgment on it yet, but I will absolutely say a lot of this is just kind of annoying to me. But that again, that could just be me. I'm willing to admit that, and I'm willing to say that the story could get better and I might end up liking it. That's happened before. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening, but I think that's enough of my rambling on this. So if y'all have any thoughts on this, you know where to share it with me down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video, that you're subscribed, and you got the notification bell on. And if you're done here, go and read a book. But if not, then I'll see you on my next video.